Lecture 2. When we look at design, we first approach with our eyes. We might even venture with touch. In some cases, we might also delight in the smells or sounds of design. What we sense affects us emotionally, especially with successful design. Using terminology from our previous lecture, we'd call something like this pragmatic success. If we delve deeper into this realm of visual understanding, we might call upon a study called semiology. Semiotics is the study of signs and symbols. In other words, it is the study that describes what is seen and what is communicated. What you might say or show to someone in many cases is not what is actually communicated. This emotional connection is important in terms of the ingestion of the arts. However, this subjectivity is a problem in terms of communication, especially as it relates to the relationship between designer and audience and those who commission a work of design. Therefore, it is important for graphic designers to be aware of this important lapse of synapse. John Berger, author of Ways of Seeing, points to the issues of this semiotic relationship when he shows us Regentness of Old Men's Almshouse by Frans Hals. He mentions how the power of a piece of art can be shaped by an accumulation of opinions around a particular work of art. The museum catalog for this particular work of art states, "Each woman speaks to us of the human condition with equal importance. Each woman stands out with equal clarity against the enormous dark surface. Yet, they are linked by a firm rhythmical arrangement, and the subdued diagonal pattern formed by their heads and hands. Subtle modulations of the deep glowing blacks contribute to the harmonious fusion of the whole, and form an unforgettable contrast with the powerful whites and vivid flesh tones, where the detached strokes reach a peak of breadth and strength." As in so many other pictures by Hals, the penetrating characterizations almost seduces us into believing that we know the personality traits and even the habits of men and women portrayed. In this case of some critics, the seduction has been a total success. It has, for example, been asserted that the region in the tipped slouch hat, which hardly covers any of his long, lank hair, and whose curiously set eyes do not focus, was shown in a drunken state. This depiction, however, is somewhat dishonest. These readings about the human condition, dignity, politics, etc. are fabrications, perhaps projections from the critics. What we see in the painting is merely 5 women sitting around the tables. Here we are reminded of the words of Slovenian philosopher Slavoj Žižek when he says, "When we name gold gold, we violently extract a metal from its natural texture, investing into it our dreams of wealth, power, spiritual purity, and so on, which have nothing whatsoever to do with the immediate reality of gold." In semiotics, in the graphic design sense, we have 3 main actors: the sign, the signified, the signifier. The sign is the thing itself. The signifier is the object used to convey the meaning of the thing. This can be a word, an image, a sound. And the signified is what is understood by the word, the image, or the sound. Art and graphic design can become more about the methodology to achieve proper communication of signs than the craft or skill of graphic design itself. In the case of the work by Frans Hals, we just don't simply see 5 women of the Dutch Renaissance. An art historian obsessed with the battle of capitalism and communism will see a painting about the birth of capitalism as the merchant classes achieved greater political power. A professional conservationist will see pigments, centuries of soot, and a fair amount of chemistry. A student such as yourself might see something completely different, something very boring, perhaps gothware inspiration. We can, for example, recall the Rolling Stones cover by the great American art director George Lewis. The title of the cover is "The First Black Santa." Our breakdown goes something like this: the sign, Santa Claus; the signifier, a magazine cover of Santa Claus; the signified, a comment about race in America. In this case, the semiotic is part of a larger cultural history. This theoretical framework can be applied to designer-client relationships. A designer will often be met, despite his or her best efforts, against the personal prejudices of the client or an audience. Take, for example, the swastika, a symbol of simple geometric construction independently created by many cultures across the globe, often associated with peace and good fortune. In this case, the signifier, peace and good fortune, the sign, a swastika, or a symbol of geometric construction, the signified, a symbol of hatred. In terms of syntactics, we have a geometric symbol, a cross with 90-degree arms. The symbol is syntactically ordered, easy to understand. Pragmatically, however, it is a failure, tainted forever by the darkest impulses of human nature. The graphic sign was brought into political and social turmoil by Heinrich Schliemann, a German businessman and amateur archaeologist obsessed with finding the real-world sites of Homer's Iliad. Schliemann's crude archaeological methods led him to find the city of Troy, along with the swastika symbol. His fame and popularity eventually spread like wildfire, and so did the symbol. In the words of Lorraine Bozenolt for her Smithsonian Magazine article, the swastika grew more prominent. It exploded into popularity as a symbol of good fortune, appearing on Coca-Cola products, Boy Scouts and Girls Club materials, and even American military uniforms, reports the BBC. But as it rose to fame, the swastika became tied to the more volatile movement. A wave of nationalism spread across Germany. Hitler, in his book Mein Kampf, states, "I myself, meanwhile, after innumerable attempts, had laid down the final form, a flag with a red background, a white disc, and a black swastika in the middle. After long trials, I also found a definite proportion between the size of the flag and the size of the white disc, as well as the shape and thickness of the swastika." You can read here an eerie parallel to our own experiences with graphic design, Hitler having made many drafts before arriving at a final graphic solution. You can hear him formally describing his work, just like you and I would. It is therefore made obvious that the work of a designer goes beyond the drawing, drafting, animating, rendering of beautiful forms. It is a system of communications between the designer and the client, between the designer and himself and his team, and between the designer and the vendors that produce the signs, posters, websites, videos, and physical installations. What is a designer? This question concerns Bruno Munari, the famous Italian artist, designer, and theorist. In his seminal text, Art as Design, he states, "A designer is a planner with an aesthetic sense. He gives the right weight to each part of a project in hand. And he knows that the ultimate form of the object is psychologically vital when the potential buyer is making up his mind. He therefore tries to give it a form appropriate as possible to its function, a form that one might say arises spontaneously from the function, from the mechanical part, from the most appropriate material. Simply said, arts, politics, poetry, industry, painting, philosophy, literature, etc., that modern graphic design came into existence at the crossroads of all these separate disciplines.